if you are in that camp that was angry about a black stormtrooper, for instance, he is just acknowledging the reality that you believe Star Wars should be with that statement. So there's nothing.
Tim Barnes is joining us. Tim is a good friend of the show. He is a writer. He's a producer. He is an actor. He has worked on things like Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, all that, and the online episodes of Maurice on Mars. Tim is a part of the Yub podcast with our friends Jim and Greg. As always, we are excited to welcome back to the show Mr. Tim Barnes.
Oh my God. Wow. I'm so, as always, excited to be here. First of all, dude? The greatest graphics. What is this? Canva? How are you doing this? What is this being?
It's actually thanks to the tariffs, it's no longer going to be done overseas as it has been. It's costing us.
Right. Make graphics American again. That's what we're saying.
Nick,
yes.
Did you want to? Where are we going from here? Oh yes, I'm sorry. I'm just my brain has stopped after all this praise of the show looking good.
Yeah, we're here to talk about black stuff.
That's
we're talking about black stuff in Star Wars Galaxy.
About black stuff.
Yeah.
We couldn't have written a better intro, and thank God we didn't.
Yep.
He said it, not me.
Well,
Let's
yeah, we are.
We're going 4 wide for this one.
Yeah, can we get a graphic with the Star Wars font that says black stuff? That's
new shirt. New shirt.
If you give me 5 minutes, I'll have something ready.
Do not make that shirt, Pete.
You can, and you can get that shirt at broaxiomoutpost.com.
No. Okay. Well,
maybe I can get away.
Hey, dude, if it's gonna sell, you fucking sell it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So we wanted to talk a little bit about, well, among other things, John Boyega made some headlines this past week with, and it wasn't really him making headlines. He was actually just on a really interesting documentary, which if you haven't watched it, it's worth a watch. I know, Tim, you watched it recently, the number one on the call sheet. Really interesting. And actually, maybe if you guys give me 1 second, I might actually be able to pull up the
great.
No, I won't be able to do that, but I'll try. There we go.
There you go.
Here's John Boyega with the actual quote that sailed 1,000 troll ships. Here we go.
They're pandering. Let me tell you, Star Wars always had the vibe of being in the most whitest elite space. Like, this franchise is so white that it's like a black person existing in that was something. And you can always tell it's something when some Star Wars fans try to say, well, we had Lando Calrissian and had Samuel L. Jackson. It's like telling me how many cookie chips are on the cookie dough. I'm like, bro, it's just, they just scattered that in there, bro. They're okay with us playing the best friend. But once we touch their heroes, once we lead, once we trailblaze, it's like, oh my God, it's just a bit too much. They're pandering.
Well, you can tell that he's been waiting, 8 years to say that? Like, it feels like a specific, stipulation and contract ended. He was like, okay, now I can let it rip. But he's not saying anything. He's honestly not saying anything that Carl Sagan didn't say. Carl Sagan, right after Star Wars came out in 1977, I think he was on the Tonight Show, talked about how bizarre it is that, we have this franchise that's in a, this futuristic sort of space opera society where we've got a bunch of white people, a bunch of aliens, and then seemingly nothing else. And just as a general comment. And so I think it's whatever controversy is coming out of John Boyega saying this is fascinating, because he is, if you are in that camp that was angry about a black stormtrooper, for instance, he is just acknowledging the reality that you believe Star Wars should be with that statement. So there's nothing to really be angry about. I feel
And it's
like.
interesting because and Chris, I'll defer to you on this because you were watching something a little bit before we got on the show, but I'm looking for, when I watched that again, first I read it, and then I found the video clip because I'd seen it in the show and I wanted to see it again. The trolls, the people who are trying to turn this into something, are saying he's calling Star Wars fans racist. And you can watch that video. Go back, if you're watching this now, go back, rewind it, and watch. I did not hear him say that once. That's not the point he's trying to make. I don't think. I think, Chris, you said it best before. If you want to share the way you said it.
I was looking for the clip just to watch again because I watched that whole documentary, which is amazing.
Yeah, especially the second part. Yeah.
Oh my God. But I couldn't find it. But what I found was a whole bunch of, red laser eyeballs for thumbnails and him like with tears, fake these channels. So yeah, it's a lot of them saying like John Boyega calls Star Wars fans racist. Like, no, that's not what it is. He's just talking to the racist Star Wars fans. So if you're upset about that, you're one of the racist Star Wars fans he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he really was set up, especially in The Force Awakens, to be the most front and center black character in Star Wars history. And I can't imagine, what it's like to have that stripped back. And I also, when you're in a position like that, it's a strange thing. You're, especially someone who was, this was his first truly big thing.
Yeah.
And so you want to play the game as it is, but you also suddenly have this mantle placed on top of you. And that's a very personal thing to navigate as a black person, as a creative, and as an actor. So he really had to kind of silently for a number of years deal with whatever that is. And also it feels like, it's not one of those things where there's necessarily one person to blame behind the scenes at Star Wars. It really is the system itself. And that's a lot of what the documentary that this comes out of is talking about. It's talking about this experience of being a lead black person in a film or a television show for a brief period. And suddenly things start to dissolve a bit, and how there is this cyclical nature of that.
Yes.
So, and at the end of the day, isn't that what Star Wars is all about? The cyclical nature of, of life.
It is like poetry. It rhymed. It rhymed in Obi-Wan. It rhymed in the Acolyte. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's strange because there's so many. So I mean, it happened to Moses Ingram. It happened to Amandla, and it continues to be this ongoing thing. And I think Tim and Chris, you nailed it. It's if it bothers you, it's probably because they're talking to you, right? Here's the little story around the Force Awakens trailer in my world. When it hit, wasn't around Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Is that when it was Thanksgiving weekend? There was a family member at the house, and I was so excited. I was like, "Let's watch it on the big screen! Everybody, come on in!" And Finn pops up, and he says, "Of course, it's a black guy." And I was like,
"Yeah."
And like from my experience, it comes down to, all right, if I go on the timeline here, like when that trailer came out, I was like, well, there's my new favorite character. Like I was so happy, that I was so happy that we had one. Yeah, we had Lando, and then 16 years later we had Mace, equal. so equally spread out. And then when this came out, and then you see the trailer, I'm like, oh my God, he's a black lead. I'm like, oh, like they're answering my prayers. So, pretty much. And then another teaser comes out and he's got the lightsaber. I'm like, oh my God, they're doing it. This is amazing. we're getting it. And then the movie comes out. But the thing is that in between then, when I started really listening to some of the Star Wars pundits, they're like influencing like some of this fandom where they're like, he's not going to be a Jedi. He can't be a Jedi. Like don't listen to that. Don't think he's going to keep that saber. Don't think that's going to happen. Like it's not going to happen. I'm not going to say which channel was doing that. What I will say is that Ken Knapsack is my favorite from there. He's the only one I like from that channel. But can't be. But yeah, like, and so that influenced a lot of these fans to not give a shit about Finn or not think he's going to do anything. And when it came out, I remember I was in the theater, and I remember the exact moment. If you remember, like some of the beats in Force Awakens, when Kylo grips up that one Imperial guy to the one First Order guy and says, "What girl?" And then it like cuts to like this close up of Rey. I was in the theater and I got disappointed the first time this ever happened. And me watching Star Wars, and I was like, "This is all about her." Like I was pissed. I'm like, what?
Well, it's a funny domino effect to imagine. Like, of course it's a black guy, and all of a sudden, of course it's a white woman. So it's interesting. And what was happening politically at the time too? It's like we were in the end of the Obama era, and what was supposed to be the beginning of, or what was projected to be the beginning of the Hillary Clinton era. So I think that when you really think about that political tense fusion that was happening at the time that The Force Awakens was arriving, it's not necessarily surprising, but it's I think what I love about Star Wars ultimately is that it cannot help but be in dialogue with what's happening politically and socially whenever these movies come out.
Sure.
And regardless of Finn not getting the lightsaber, that didn't bother me so much. I really felt like in The Force Awakens, Finn was one of the most nuanced characters in Star Wars history. In terms of like seeing someone go from being a stormtrooper, that idea of wrestling with that, I was ultimately by the end of the 3 movies disappointed in not really seeing that play out. It's the most conflicted, specific thing that I can imagine ever exploring.
There's actually a comment, and I know I get the sense they're trying to stir the pot a little bit, but I want to bring it up because I wanted to respond
to that.
This one says a large majority of fans wanted him to keep the lightsaber. Agreed, but Rian Johnson didn't. No, Rian Johnson had his story, but blame the fans. So here's the biggest problem that I'm going to start with this issue with this Tom guy. Nobody's blaming the fans. Nobody is blaming the fans for any of this. And Rian Johnson's story went a different way. And actually, if you want to blame anybody, blame J.J. Abrams for shitting the bed in The Rise of Skywalker, because that story.
No. Start with The Force Awakens. Start with The Force Awakens, because it gave him this compelling story. And then it wound up with him going nowhere. He starts off like the stormtrooper, and they didn't really go into his dealing with his indoctrination being broken and him leaving the First Order. He was just scared all the time, and like he you don't want to mess with the First Order. That's the extent of it. Like there should have been a whole lot more with that. And by the end of that movie, he does. Rey's got the Force, Rey's got a saber, Rey's got the Falcon. He's got a sliced up back, and he's knocked out cold. If you want to blame someone, blame J.J. Abrams and his hard on for red herrings. Just this red herring that he did. He shouldn't have done that at our expense.
And I do think that, I am very conflicted about the rise of, about The Last Jedi, because I love it so much, but I do think that the Finn element is sorely lacking. But then also, when I look at Rian Johnson's work since, just if we're going to put a lens on the directors, I do think that he learned a sort of lesson from this. I do think that when you look at a lot of the stuff that he's made, like from like The Glass Onion to a lot of episodes of Poker Face, I do think that he has put a more of an effort to be like, okay, let me focus on some black stuff a little more. Just to tie
we should have had him on the show. He'll be on next week's black stuff.
We know back in 2020, 2021, somewhere in there, he made some similar comments like this. 2020, and the folks at Disney reached out to him, and he went and they had a conversation. Like there was kind of a direct, not fully detailed, reported on meeting and kind of summit or face-to-face that they had, talking about his feelings of how his character was treated. What do you feel like that means for the Rey movie? Is John Boyega going to end up back in this as Finn and as a more developed Jedi Finn?
I feel like what I would want is for him to get what is essentially the Luke Skywalker treatment in the sequel trilogy. I would love for him to be teased as this important figure. You know what I mean? And then if that works, you really give him something meaty, something that like he agrees is worthy in a second movie or something like that.
Sure. And I think that's 15 years later is what we're supposed to. I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
It's going to jump 15 years in the timeline. So obviously a lot could happen in that time. But I just wonder, between the real world, is there enough real world healing between John Boyega, Disney, the creatives, Lucasfilm, the folks that are doing that?
Paycheck.
Yeah, paycheck. I mean, obviously, yeah. And if he gets an offer
heals
to
all
do,
wounds.
yeah, I mean, if we're doing another Pacific Rim movie or we're doing, Star Wars, and one of them's going to pay more, you're going to go with the one that pays more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the beauty of John Boyega in that clip and in that documentary as a whole is that he does feel like he's healed from the experience, like
That's
himself. Like he's not just the energy of him making that statement. It doesn't feel like there's anger at Lucasfilm in that particular way anymore. Sure. It's more just like, I moved on from this. This is my official take on it, and I'm doing quality Black stuff now. So that documentary series, it's 2 parts. The first part is about Black men who have been number 1 on the call sheet, and the second part is about Black women. And then something about the second part is like made with so much heart and depth, and it's fantastic. And Gabrielle Union makes a point at one point that as soon as she stopped trying to center the white gaze of Sauron in terms of the projects that she picked up, she just felt this great sense of personal relief. And I think that's something that every Black creative, like I've been in this situation too, where you want to wish the best of the system as a whole, and you just kind of get taught that is not built for you. And you learn how to really get into a situation in which you're working with a system that is built for you. And there's a beautiful camaraderie that comes out of that. So I'm left feeling very proud of John Boyega and excited to see what he's going to focus on next. And it's great to know that he is at a place where when he does decide to do something with Star Wars, it's something that he truly believes in and not something that he necessarily needs to do for the paycheck. Of course, he's going to make sure he gets a good one, but it's not like I need this, that he's going to hop back in.
And honestly, this is, we joked a little bit about it at the top, but the reality is this is why I wanted Chris's perspective and Tim's perspective, because Nick and I, let's face it, we're middle-aged white guys, so our perspective is very hard to believe. I know. It's a perspective that, again, you don't even have to understand it, you have to allow it to exist, right? I mean, I think to me that was the thing the most with the Amanda Stenberg piece of this was, look, she got beat up before she even did word 1 on screen, right?
Yeah.
And that purely comes from a place of people who are not willing to give the moment and give the opportunity. And that's why people say Star Wars fans are racist, because there's that group of people who shout it from the top of the building and then say, hey, why are you calling me this? So
it's not all of them. It's not all of them. It's
for sure.
A good loud bit.
And I think the heart of the clash is that unfortunately it's just one of those situations where the existence of a Black person on screen jolts certain white people out of fantasy land, no matter what it is. It kind of reaffirms the fact that somehow being Black is a political act. just being a Black person is a statement. It's a political act, and it jars people. It makes people think about uncomfortable things, just the sight. So I think it's something that everyone has to wrestle with. And this franchise, unlike something like The Lord of the Rings, in which you could argue perhaps maybe there are some valid points, this takes place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if we were just to look at Earth a long time ago, it's a lot of Black people. I'm just going to put it that way.
Before we let you go, plug away. Tell us where we can find the stuff you're working on and and all that stuff.
You can find anything about me at timbarnescomedy.com. I also have a newsletter that you can find at timbarnescomedy.substack.com. I co-host a podcast called Yup Nub with Greg Iwinski and Jim Fagan. Greg writes on the show Young Jedi Adventures, and we're all late night writers. Jim most recently wrote for The Tonight Show. I wish I could tell you about it right now, but I am working on high quality black stuff right now. I'm hoping that's going to come out this summer. It's a project I've been working on for a number of years, and I can't wait for people to check it out. And that's it. Check out Yub Nub. It's part of the Sonar Podcast Network, and we release episodes whenever we feel like it.
Whatever we fit. I really now want to get a podcast called Black Stuff with you and Chris, just with you guys. I will watch it and listen to it. God. What is that bad?
I think we have some good chemistry here. I'm down.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for hanging out with us and risking your career. We appreciate you coming on and hanging as always, and we'll see you again.